Imagine waking up to a notification that dictates your entire existence before you even pour your first cup of coffee. The numbers hit your inbox at exactly 6:47 in the morning. $47,200. That is your current balance. It is a mountain built from student loans, a credit card you got during your first year of college, and a laptop you bought on a payment plan. You are 23 years old. Every day, you sit in a small cubicle on the 14th floor of a skyscraper that you will never own. You tell yourself this situation is only temporary. You believe that everyone starts out this way and that this is just the price of entry into adulthood. You pay the bare minimum on 3 different accounts without ever questioning the true cost of your silence. While you sleep, you can almost hear the interest growing in real time. You are essentially paying money for the privilege of owing money. You know this deep down, but you find ways to justify it. Everyone else is doing it, so you assume this is just how life begins. When the credit card company offers you a limit increase, you feel a brief sense of accomplishment. It feels like someone finally approved of you, even though it was just an automated algorithm. You do not yet understand the difference, and the feeling is the same. You view your debt the way you view the weather, as something outside of your control that you simply have to endure. You never stop to ask who actually holds your debt or why it even matters. You navigate your financial obligations like a driver in heavy traffic, moving by habit and instinct rather than a map. You are not just in debt. You are trapped inside a massive system you do not yet understand. The corporation you work for borrowed money to buy the very building where you sit. The bank where you keep your modest savings is leveraged 14-1 against its own equity. Even the physical currency in your wallet is a sovereign obligation. You spend that debt on your lunch. You ride the elevator down to the lobby and back up again every single day without a second thought. By that night, your balance has grown to $47,312. It was $47,200 this morning. You did nothing, yet the burden increased. You will learn these lessons slowly through loss and experience, but that time has not yet come. Now you are 28 years old. 5 years have passed in the blink of an eye. You are now the owner of a mortgage for $340,000 at a fixed rate of 6.8%. You did the math before you signed the papers. You realized you will eventually pay $612,000 for a $340,000 house. You understood the terms, and you signed anyway. Between the mortgage, a car payment of $487 a month, and a home equity line, your total liability is $387,000. Your monthly take-home pay is $6,200. By any traditional standard, you are a success story. However, you start to notice a shift in your own behavior. You find yourself staying in jobs that you would have walked away from years ago. The mortgage is due on the first of the month, so the debt makes your career decisions for you. You tolerate management you cannot stand because your home equity line has a variable rate and the central bank is still raising interest rates. Debt is no longer just a number on a screen. It is a tool that modifies your behavior. It dictates exactly how much risk you are allowed to take. You watch your colleagues quit to start their own businesses or move to new cities while you calculate yourself out of every opportunity. You run the numbers over and over again. The math always returns the same answer, not yet. Understanding these invisible chains is exactly why I created this channel. If you want to learn how to break free from the system and master your own financial destiny, make sure to join our community at Billy Finance and hit that subscribe button right now. Your home equity statement arrives, and the variable rate has climbed once again. You simply absorb the blow. The Federal Reserve raises rates again, and your life becomes more expensive. You read the news on your phone, but the debt does not feel like a threat. It does not need to threaten you because it is patient. From the outside, you look like the image of success with a house, a car, and a stable career. But beneath that image is a rigid structure. Every single month, $387,000 in liability demands your attention. It is mandatory. The debt makes the decisions before you even sit down to look at your budget. There is a gap between what you earn and what you keep, and that is where the debt lives. It is willing to wait for the next 30 years. Later in life, you borrow $280,000 from a lender at 2% above the prime rate. You open a 3,200 square foot commercial space. You have 2 part-time employees and $14,000 in the business account against a massive principal balance. You are constantly crunching the numbers. There is a personal guarantee attached to the loan, meaning if the business fails, the debt follows you to your front door. While personal debt limits your choices, business debt weaponizes your time. Every single day costs you money whether you make a sale or not. The interest clock never stops ticking and it offers no days off. You lie awake at night wondering if your clients will pay you before your own bills are due. You extend $22,000 in credit to a slow-paying client. The bank calls it exposure, but you call it a month of pure anxiety. This is how you learn that profit and cash flow are two very different things. You learn this through stress, not from a textbook. A business can look great on paper and still go bankrupt because it ran out of cash. You pull a salary that is $30,000 less than your old corporate job. You do not tell people that part. You tell them you're an entrepreneur, but you do not mention who really owns the business. The lender holds the note, and your personal assets are the collateral. Bills are due on Friday, but the money will not arrive until Monday. You have used short-term loans to bridge this gap 4 times this year already. Your employees have no idea any of this is happening. The bank calls to review your account, and you spend the entire night preparing for the conversation. You finally understand that business debt converts every hour of your life into a financial obligation. The loan does not care if you had a bad month. It demands payment regardless. Eventually, you become the vice president of finance for a mid-sized company. You manage $120 million in credit for a firm earning $480 million in revenue. You know the bank's rules better than your own name. Every ratio is critical. If you break a single rule, the lenders can demand all the money back at once. That nightmare scenario lives in a folder on your desktop that you update every 90 days. You have restructured the company's finances twice in 4 years just to buy more time. You traded short-term debt for long-term debt, which cost more in interest but saved the company. You spent 3 sleepless weekends negotiating to prevent a total default. The public was told the company improved its capital structure, but you know the truth was much more desperate. Debt at this level is no longer personal. It is structural. It is a tool that you use with clinical precision. You no longer think of debt as something you owe, but as something you deploy. The board of directors sees clean ratios and exact figures. They do not see the stress or the contingency plans. You remember when $47,000 felt like an impossible crisis. Now, you manage $120 million before you even eat breakfast. The language you use has shifted over time. Debt has become capital. Risk has become exposure. Loss has become impairment. You do not owe this debt, you're simply operating it. Finally, you close a $2.1 billion deal. The funds clear just before noon. The structure is complex, with over $1 billion in debt layered across different levels. The debt is placed on the balance sheet of the company you just bought, not your own. The target company now carries the burden of its own acquisition. That is not a mistake, it is the entire point of the deal. As a managing director, you understand leverage at a molecular level. You know exactly how much weight a business can carry before it breaks. You push companies to that very edge on purpose. You call it efficiency, and your investors call it a great return. The people working inside those companies have a different name for it. The pressure is intense, but it never shows up in your official memos. In the last 18 months, you have overseen the layoff of 340 people. You felt something the first time it happened. By the second time, the feeling was gone. You have stopped looking into the gap entirely. The mathematics behind it all is both elegant and cold. Borrowed capital is used to acquire real assets, and value is meticulously extracted until the capital can be returned. The human cost of these transactions happens far downstream, invisible to the eye, and already factored into the price. You did not create this model, but you are the one who executes it. Your investors are massive pension funds, university endowments, and sovereign wealth pools. These entities represent the life savings and futures of millions of ordinary people. But as time goes on, you stop thinking about the people and start focusing entirely on the basis points. This shift happens so gradually you barely notice it. There are companies that did not survive your process, but you choose not to speak of them. You know exactly what happened to them, but you hide the reality behind the phrase capital efficiency. Those 2 words are a container for everything you have decided to stop examining. At this level of the game, debt is no longer a constraint or a burden. Debt is the primary operating mechanism, and you are completely fluent in its language. You stop seeing faces and start seeing returns because that is exactly what this level requires of you. You manage a credit fund worth $4.8 billion. Your specific expertise is finding companies currently in deep financial distress. You buy up their discounted debt at 47 cents on the dollar from banks that are desperate to clear it from their books. You hold onto that debt throughout the entire restructuring process. When the dust settles, you emerge as the senior creditor, or, in many cases, the new owner. Through the power of the capital markets, you have seized control of regional airlines, chemical manufacturers, and entire hospital networks. You were not there for the birth of these businesses, but you acquired them after they faltered. Everything you do is perfectly legal and represents the market functioning exactly as it was intended. You have studied every line of the financial framework. Your team of analysts keeps a close watch on 800 different credits. When financial ratios begin to climb and earnings start to miss expectations, you make your move. By the time leverage ratios start spiking, you have already built your positions. You are never caught off guard because you are positioned specifically for the disaster. That is the core of your entire strategy. You have sat across the table from chief executives who spent over 20 years building their companies. You restructured those same companies in Chapter 11 proceedings. You do not view yourself as the villain in their life story. Instead, you see yourself as a necessary mechanism of conversion. Whether you truly believe that is something you no longer take the time to question. You stopped asking those kinds of questions a long time ago. Your fund operates on a 2-in-20 fee structure. This means management fees are collected every single year, regardless of how the fund actually performs. Over the last 3 years, you have collected $190 million in fees alone. That is simply how the structure is built. The sovereign funds and university boards review your performance every quarter. As long as the returns are high, the questions stop right there. No one looks beneath the surface when the numbers are trending in the right direction. Debt at this level is not just a financial position, it is a legal claim on the future of a business. You are the one who holds those claims. True control has nothing to do with traditional ownership and everything to do with your placement in the capital stack. You argue that a failing business becomes a viable one under your guidance. It is an argument you have polished over many years. The person who holds the most senior claim is the one who dictates what happens next. You find yourself in a windowless conference room in Geneva. The entire financial future of a nation is currently on the table. There is $41 billion in external debt that needs to be renegotiated. You are acting as the lead advisor for the ministry. The players involve the International Monetary Fund and a consortium of powerful European banks. Just 3 hedge funds hold 38% of the total bond issuance. The debt to gross domestic product ratio has reached 118%. The 10-year yield has spiked to 14.3, and the local currency has dropped by 31%. You are already familiar with the structural adjustment conditions the International Monetary Fund will demand. You have read this exact document many times before. It will require strict austerity, the removal of energy subsidies, and the privatization of state assets. You know this list by heart, but you also know what it will do to a population already struggling to survive. You are aware of both the financial necessity and the human reality. You negotiate the financial haircut anyway, because that is why you were brought into the room. The creditors eventually accept a 35% reduction in principal, along with new bonds and extended maturities. You publicly refer to this as debt sustainability. The hedge funds view it as a temporary loss that they will recover over the next 10 years. The press release is issued, and by evening, the room is empty. The people whose subsidies were stripped away will likely never read that press release. However, they will certainly feel the results of it every day. At this level, debt is not just a financial instrument, it is a mechanism of global governance. You understand this dynamic perfectly. Whoever structures a nation's debt gains structural influence over the policy choices of its elected government. You have worked in 4 different countries, and each one was insolvent before they ever borrowed a cent. You knew this before you even walked in. You know exactly which foreign banks knowingly underwrote those risky issuances. You know the exact advisory fees that were charged for the service. You never discuss these details in writing. Some truths are only meant to stay within the rooms where they were learned. The creditor dictates the conditions, the government carries them out, and the population lives with the consequences. You fly out of Geneva the very next morning. The next case file is already waiting for your attention. It is a different country with the same broken structure and the same debt to gross domestic product crisis. It will end with the same creditor conditions and the same empty press release. You are not listed on any organizational chart that the general public can access. That lack of visibility is not an accident. It is the fundamental design of your world. You sit on the board of a private institution that coordinates liquidity policy across 12 different central banks. Your contacts include 3 current finance ministers and a former governor of the Federal Reserve. They are the ones who call you. You have not personally managed a portfolio in 9 years because you no longer need to. You do not spend your time trading debt. You design the global conditions that determine how debt is priced. That is the ultimate distinction in power. When you advocate for a shift in reserve requirements, you change the cost of capital for every bank in existence. When you privately signal that a country's new bond issuance might face trouble, the yields adjust before an official word is spoken. The mechanism is vast, distributed, and entirely functional. You did not build this system, but you are one of the few who operates it. Your office sits on the 32nd floor of a building in Zurich. There is no logo on the front door, and your assistant screens every single incoming call. You might take only 4 calls in an entire week, but each one carries enormous weight. You sacrificed your personal relationships for this life. One ended because you were completely unreachable for 11 consecutive days. Your children understand what you do only in the broadest sense. You have deliberately kept the specific details away from them. You have a professional security arrangement and travel using a passport from a different jurisdiction. This is just your routine. You are not powerful because you own a mountain of capital. You are powerful because you possess a deep understanding of how capital flows. You know exactly who can access money, under what specific conditions, and at what price. Almost no one else can see the strings. You do not spend any time thinking about freedom anymore. That word no longer applies to your reality. The only word that matters now is leverage. You have it, and for a long time that has been more than enough. Somewhere in a city center, a 22-year-old signs his very first job offer letter. He receives his employee identification card and opens a brand new checking account. He clicks through the terms and conditions without reading a single word. He applies for a credit card to buy things he does not need, just to feel like he has finally made it. He believes his life is about his income, about earning more and spending less. He is not entirely wrong, but his understanding is tragically incomplete. The company he works for took on debt just to acquire the building where he sits. He does not realize this yet. The bank where he keeps his savings is currently leveraged 14-to-1 against its own equity. The currency sitting in his account is, in itself, a sovereign debt obligation. He has likely never even considered that sentence. High above him, on a floor he will never be allowed to visit, a brief phone call is made regarding liquidity. The conversation is only 4 sentences long. The market adjusts itself before he even finishes eating his lunch. He won't feel the impact of that call for another 6 months. But eventually his rent will go up and his credit card interest rate will climb. That is when he will finally notice. The system never announces its arrival, it simply manifests in the changing numbers. This architecture has always been here, long before he arrived. It will remain here long after he is gone. It does not require his understanding to function. You started this journey with a simple balance, and you ended with a global architecture. That is the vast distance we have just traveled. If you found this breakdown of the hidden financial world valuable, make sure to subscribe to Billy Finance for more deep dives. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts on how debt shapes our world today.